I'm Alejandro Guevara.
And I'm Shanon and We have worked together for many years through the arts.
The Fringe Festival, it's, in one sentence, it's theater of the outcasts. No matter what type of social status you had, you got the opportunity to perform and to do your craft. And that's how the Fringe started.
The Light Princess is one of my favorite fairy tales, was written back in the 1800s. And when we started looking for something for Fringe, we couldn't really find something that fit right. And we wanted something that would be really special, that would really communicate the love of Christ in an allegorical way. And so The Light Princess really does tell that story of how Christ gave his life for us. And so it just wound up being the perfect fit. Jesus himself told parables. Those stories had such an impact on the people of his day, and this was kind of like our way of following in his footsteps, that we're telling that parable that shows God's love, but is not maybe what people would expect. I think our biggest challenge was finding people who were experienced in dance.
Yeah.
We had a few that did come, and they were beautiful, excellent dancers. But we had almost half of our cast were not dancers. And they really stepped up. They did an excellent job. They worked really hard, and they helped us put together a dance show, even though they weren't dancers. But that was our biggest challenge, was helping that process along.
I think something that from the cast that got engraved in me was how willing everybody was to work for this idea that we'd had and just to make it happen.
We see the princess as a baby, and she is floating through life because her aunt comes in to curse her. Her father had forgotten to give his sister an invitation, and the aunt was so angry that she came and put a curse on the baby. And then we jump very quickly to she's much older now, she's grown, but she's lived her whole life without real love or joy. And then she accidentally falls into the lake. And the lake is her first glimpse of what real freedom is like, and it changes her whole view of life. In the next scene, we see the prince. He sees the princess in the lake, and he thinks that she's drowning and that she needs to be rescued, which in truth she does, but she doesn't realize it yet. And so he runs to the lake and he pulls her out, and she says, "No, put me back. That's where I want to be." And they develop a friendship of sorts through that moment. And the prince falls in love with the princess, but the princess, she doesn't really have much of a heart that is open to love, and so she still looks on him very coldly, which is very much how we view Christ. Before Christ died for us, before we had accepted him, before we loved him, while we were still sinners. We discover through the course of the story that in order for the lake to be revived, someone has to give their life. And the prince, of course, offers his, just like Christ offered for us. And the princess, she at first doesn't really realize what's happening. She sees the prince and she thinks, "Oh, the lake is coming back." She just views it as a selfish thing. I'm getting what I need. But then she realizes that the prince is really giving up his life for her.
The last scene, it was an interpretation through dance of what Christ might have gone through when he went down, and he said that he took the keys from death and Prince died, and he confronted the curse itself.
And then he goes to the princess and he basically reconciles with her. It reminds me a lot of the story of Jesus meeting Mary in the garden after he rose. She was the only one there, but she was there. And how that was such a special moment right after he came back from the dead, and how our dependence on Christ is so great. She still couldn't walk, but when the prince came back, he took her hand and he said, "I'm going to teach you. I'm going to take you that way." There were a couple times, and I noticed in the audience, where people were really touched, and it was so great to see that they could understand the heart of the story. A lot of times with Fringe, I think you get a lot of people that will never come into a church. So it's such an opportunity to be able to bring the story of God's love to people who would never come seek it themselves.
We call it a show, but it's not a show. We were at least I felt like we were ministering. And we're doing right now what you call us to do. We seizing this opportunity that you gave us, and we just hope in your name that you're touching the lives that are supposed to be touched. And we're just here because you asked us to. I'm just glad that we were obedient.
When you can see a story come to life, it really changes your perspective of it. It puts it in your heart to be able to use the arts to show people, not just tell them, but to show them God's love and His forgiveness and His compassion to us. And every once in a while, it's like you get a glimpse of the glory, and it just changes you forever.